That's my everyday attitude. Gratitude.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our virtual center spotlight on teen dating violence. My name is Lily Craig, and I'm the development associate at the Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center. We like to use these virtual gatherings as an opportunity to share information on our different programs, as well as the latest news and updates from the center. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to allow the other members of our staff who are in attendance to unmute and introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Alicia Pete. I am the communications manager at the center. Welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Majewski. I'm the director of advancement.
Good morning. My name is Briar, and I'm a youth advocate here at the center.
Good morning. My name is Francisca Juarez, and I'm a victims advocate at SOS here at the Homestead Police Department.
Welcome.
Hi, good morning. My name is Andy Polanco. I'm the coordinator for the Youth Empowerment Services here at Jeannie Geiger.
Morning, Andy.
Morning. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. This morning, you'll hear from Kelly Majewski, who will give an overview of the center, Briar Lawfield, who will present on teen dating violence, healthy relationship, and the center's youth empowerment services. During this portion of the program, all attendees will be muted to prevent any background noise. However, there will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end, and at that time, you may unmute yourself and ask our speakers any follow-up questions that you might have. So before we get started, I want to share a couple of suggestions for those of you who may not be familiar with Zoom or some of our features that we have that are going to make tuning in a little bit easier. And if you're joining us today and are comfortable turning on your camera, we also invite you to do so. So at the top right-hand corner of your screen, you have the option to view the event in gallery or speaker view. And so if you're not currently in the speaker view right now, we recommend you take a moment to switch that setting. And at any time, if you have any technical Zoom questions, please direct them to me in the chat, and you can find that icon at the bottom of their screen. And when you click on the chat icon, it will bring up the sidebar where you're given the opportunity to select my name, and then you can submit any questions directly to me. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to Kelly Majewski.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. On behalf of my colleagues here at the Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center and the Board of Directors, we welcome you to today's Center Spotlight. It really does mean so much to us that you're taking the time to join us today in support of our mission to empower individuals and engage communities to end domestic violence. Domestic violence affects millions of people in the United States every single year. And data shows that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men in the United States will experience severe physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. What's more is that researchers have estimated between 3.3 and 10 million children are exposed to domestic violence each and every year. Our job here at the center is to provide services to adults and children who experience domestic violence and to interrupt that cycle for the next generation. The Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center has served survivors of domestic violence for over 40 years, and I'll just quickly take a couple of minutes to share with you some of our programs. It starts with our survivor services programs. We serve anywhere from 12 to 1,400 survivors of domestic violence each and every year at no cost to them, as we certainly do not want cost to be a barrier. So some of those services include our 24-hour confidential crisis hotline, advocacy and counseling, support groups, legal representation and assistance, housing assistance, children's safety programs, and art therapy. We also have our youth empowerment services, which we like to call YES for short. And these are nationally recognized approaches to educate girls and boys and non-binary students. And the programs include gender-based violence prevention, healthy masculinity, bystander education, and our Girls Inc. of the Seacoast area. These programs actually are conducted in schools, and then they're also conducted off-site at different various locations around the communities. We have our Geiger Institute, which is our national initiative to end domestic violence homicide. The center has provided homicide prevention strategies over the last 18 years, including training and technical assistance to over 250 jurisdictions throughout the country. We partner with communities to implement proven homicide reduction strategies, develop new solutions, and evaluate their effectiveness. And our last program is the Intimate Partner Abuse Education Program. This is a 40-week court-ordered program for people who use violence in their intimate relationships. This program promotes safety to domestic violence survivors by holding the individuals who use violence accountable for their actions and helping them to change their behavior. So today's Center Spotlight is going to focus on our teen dating violence and our Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center Youth Empowerment Services. So I'm going to turn this over to Briar, who will share more with you about teen dating violence and the work of the YES programs. So Briar, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm going to take a moment here to share my screen. Give me one moment. Okay. As I mentioned, my name is Briar. My pronouns are she, they. I'm a survivor of teen dating violence, and I've been a youth advocate here at the center for a little over a year. This presentation is also going to feature Imogene, a student at Amesbury Innovation High School, who was kind enough to record some reflections on teen dating violence, and we will be featuring that. Very grateful. So one thing I did want to say, it's February, it's Black History Month. I would be remiss not to mention it. We are holding and acknowledging a lot today. I really appreciated Londrell, that song you heard if you joined us right at 8 a.m. Such a wonderful, positive representation of care and respect towards women, which we don't always see in the media. All right. So this is Be About It, Teen Dating Violence Awareness 2023. This theme was selected by the Love is Respect Youth Council. And so I'm very excited that we're participating. Lastly, I just wanted to mention, we will be talking about some sensitive topics today. So this is a general content warning. We encourage you to take care of yourself. And we will be listing some resources towards the end of this presentation. So please use those as you see fit. All right, so at the center, I am part of an incredible prevention team. Here we are. I have to give a big shout out to my coworker Tia and our coordinator Andy. We really do this work collaboratively, and I'm so appreciative of them. So in Youth Empowerment Services, our goal is thriving youth, equitable relationships, and safe communities. We really want to do this by activating youth in this movement to prevent intimate partner abuse and promote meaningful connections. I wanted to highlight a few things about thriving youth. This is something that we don't always highlight as much, but I think it's important to dig into. So this is not an extensive list, but a few things that are important to talk about. So we really think it's important for young people to have a positive sense of self. We sometimes call this self-esteem, and this is just kind of the base, is where we really like to start. We emphasize healthy relationships. We think this matters with peers, with families, and in dating relationships as well. We really we emphasize meaningful connections with a caring community. We think it's really important that young people are valued by their community. And lastly, we think that it's important that young people feel empowered to make an impact, to discover their own path, their own purpose. When young people are thriving, they do incredible things. Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month is such a great example of that. It was spearheaded by young people for years and years. They said that this was an important thing. And in 2010, Congress declared the month of February National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. So they can do wonderful things. I think it's also important to say that experiencing teen dating violence can really disrupt someone's capacity to thrive. So maybe that feels a little, obvious. So what is the big deal here? Why does this matter so much? I wanted to invite us to play a little game. This is adapted from some healthy relationships curriculum that we deliver in health classes. It's a myth fact. So I invite you all to drop in the chat. We just have a few here and we'll start, and I'll give you a second. I can't see the chat, so my friends are going to help me out to let me know how we're doing here. So, all right. So teen dating violence is as common as domestic violence in adult relationships. Myth or fact? I hope you all have your coffee. I hope you're feeling awake. Oh, okay.
Looks like we have quite a few facts being guessed.
Absolutely. That is a fact. So, unfortunately, now the numbers we have are suggesting about 1 in 3 teens will experience teen dating violence or some kind of abuse before they graduate high school. I did some calculations. That's the kind of person I am. There's about 17 million high schoolers right now. So we're talking like almost 6 million high schoolers that are going to be experiencing some kind of abuse. All right, next one. Teens that experience dating violence generally disclose their experience. Myth or fact? Thank you all for participating. Yes, yeah, absolutely. This is another common myth. We know about 1 in 3 or 1/3, so 33% of young people are reporting, but those numbers are really low. And unfortunately, that kind of matches what we're seeing. We don't see a ton of young people seeking services for teen dating violence. All right, and last one here. Teen dating violence is not generally dangerous or lethal. What do we think here? Some myth. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is a myth. So a study in 2019 found that about 7% of some cases they were following resulted in homicide. That's not quite 1 in 10, but nearly. So it's really important that we begin dispelling this myth that teen dating violence isn't as serious as intimate partner violence. So I wanted to pull up some definitions here. I think it's helpful to kind of see. So intimate partner violence, we describe as a pattern of abusive, controlling, and or violent behavior towards a partner in an intimate relationship. Now we can see teen dating violence, this definition, teen dating violence is a pattern of controlling behavior exhibited towards one teenager by another in a dating relationship. So these are really similar definitions. We're looking at a pattern, generally repeated over time. We're looking at the same kind of tactics of abuse, these characteristics of power and control. So I think it's really important to emphasize that. However, there are some things that are unique to teen dating violence. And I think that those are actually more reason to take a look and to take this very seriously. So throughout this presentation, I want to highlight some of those unique aspects of teen dating violence. And the first is adolescence. Adolescence is a really interesting time of life. Interesting is one way to put it. For some, it's fantastic. For some, it's difficult. It's transformative. So warning signs can be really difficult to spot. Are people shifting their friend group because, that's a natural, normal thing to do, or is something really wrong? The other thing is that, there are insecurities with every phase of life, and adolescence is no different. Schools are a tiny, tiny ecosystem, so we can imagine that rumors and stories can be spread really easily. Young people, I think, often fear not being believed or not being supported. And finally, it's important to be liked, to have friends, to have peers. Having this kind of experience, I think sometimes people fear that this could impact their friendships. All right. Equitable relationships. This is really so much the core of what we do. And this is the relationship spectrum. It's a training tool that we use in a lot of our curriculums. So I wanted to highlight it today. And I've gone ahead and listed a few relationship characteristics. Now, there are thousands of qualities and characteristics of a relationship, but I wanted to highlight a couple, open and honest communication, respect. And then there's just two things that I really want to mention here today about this tool. The first is spectrum. Of course, we want young people over here in this healthy place, having healthy relationships with themselves and with all of the people in their lives. We don't want anybody to experience unhealthy or what young people often call toxic relationships. But we do want young people to have some language to understand a pretty common phenomenon we see in relationships that are becoming unhealthy or abusive. We often call this escalation or intensification. The behaviors we're seeing are becoming more intense. They are transforming into something else. So if we can give young people the tools to be able to see how those relationship qualities are transforming, then we hope that can help them begin to identify some of this early on. The other piece is equity. We would love for relationships to be equal, and often they are in certain ways. And we also want young people to be thinking critically about power dynamics in relationships and that they are inherent to relationships. It doesn't make a relationship unhealthy necessarily. Somebody might be physically larger, someone might have more access to money, and that's not something that they can necessarily help. What's important is that young people have the tools to think about how that might impact the relationship and the dynamics between, the dating partners, and what they can do, strategies to make that relationship still feel equal and equitable and comfortable. So I wanted to share another training tool that we use. This is from One Love Foundation. It's a short film. We're going to look at the trailer today, but it's a short film called Door 3. This was out of a film festival that One Love did last year. It was all youth produced and created films, and this one won. So I thought we would take a look. Let's see if it'll play for us.
I really can't leave you too alone without making a mess, can I? Hi.
What's up? Good?
Yeah.
It's not even eating her food.
Day. Hey, give me a sec. I need to take this.
Day.
Em, leave it, okay?
You lied to me and now you're out with your friends, having a good time? Like this doesn't matter? Like I don't matter? Is this not exhausting to you?
Kind of said it was a rough patch, right? And then the police.
Since when do we lie to each other, D?
Just be mad. It's easier in the long run.
Wait, are you not worried?
I've said my piece, even if I can't have it.
It is my fault. I don't know, I just...
All right, so just a few things that I wanted to mention here. The first is that I think it's so important that we never see the person causing harm, even in the short trailer, and it's true through the whole short film. Everything is done digitally. This is a great, and unfortunately great example of digital abuse, which I think is so important for young people to see because of how often they do use technology. It's quite normal for them. So I think it's really important to see this example. The other thing is that I really appreciate is the tension in the friendships. It is really hard to support somebody who's experiencing teen dating violence. It's hard to experience it and disclose it to friends. And I think this does a great job of showing both sides of that. The last thing I wanted to mention, when I showed this to a group of students last year, I had a young person say, look, this is the most accurate representation of how teen dating violence sounds that I've heard. And that's really what we want our training tools to be. We want them to be relevant, to be specific, to hit home for the young people who are watching them so that they can really connect and learn. All right. So some of what is unique about teen dating violence are teen relationships. So I wanted to highlight a few things here. So a lot of times teen relationships are seen as kind of puppy love or not taken as seriously. This unfortunately can kind of contribute to this myth that we have that teen dating violence isn't as serious as intimate partner violence amongst adults. I also, there is still a lot of pressure. I think this is something that has been true and still holds true. There's still a lot of pressure to be in a relationship. There's kind of a status that comes along with it, especially for teens who are just beginning to date. There are often fewer relationships for young people to draw comparison. They might not have dated as much, which is normal. So kind of understanding new experiences, I often say young people experience everything that adults experience just for the first time. So I think it's important to kind of consider that. And lastly, teens define relationships in a lot of different ways. I think sometimes adults might not always identify or be able to identify, some young people might just say they're hanging out or kicking it. Cuffing might be like seasonal dating. And sometimes they just call it a situationship. So these more casual terms, I think, can make it difficult to identify. Okay, lastly, I wanted to talk about safe communities. I heard something so great in a training recently. Shout out to Miss Gail Rogers of Atlanta. She said healthy communities. That means a whole lot of healthy people. And that's really true. Teens really benefit when communities are safe and healthy, and there's also a reciprocal relationship when, I think healthy and safe communities value teens and really care about them and their contributions. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our programs here. We are part of the community. So we are a Girls Inc. national affiliate. We are Girls Inc. of the Seacoast area. We inspire all participants to be strong, smart, and bold. I love these programs. These are really centered on girls' needs, and they're really holistic about building up the whole girl, whether that's inspiring an interest in STEM or finding some important coping skills for life stresses in our healthy living programs. We also have healthy masculinities. This is, I like to highlight the masculinities because we're really trying to emphasize that there's not just one way to be a man. So we use a documentary called The Mask You Live In and associated curriculum. We're also really excited to add on a new program, an evidence-based program called Coaching Boys into Men, which gets delivered by coaches. So a lot happening in healthy masculinities. We also have healthy relationships and health classes, which we pulled some of that curriculum, and you experienced some of those training tools today. We think it's really important to support health teachers in their health classes and are so grateful anytime they offer that space to us. And lastly, we have a bystander education program. This is a Mentors in Violence Prevention. It's a program out of Northeastern. It's a 2-day institute for young people. And here in Amesbury, they have really taken off. They have a club that meets regularly. And part of what I love about the bystander program is that it doesn't view people as potential perpetrators or potential victims, but rather everyone as bystanders. And this is so important because we all will at some point very likely be a bystander to some kind of violence. So I wanted to highlight here that peers, other youth, are often first responders in these situations. Young people don't generally go to an adult first. A lot of times they're going to friends and other people they feel comfortable with. So we like to give young people the tools to know how to respond in those situations, some resources they could connect people to at the pace that feels good for that young person, as long as they're not in imminent danger. And we also remind them that they don't need to take on too much. So it's really important that young people are taking care of themselves as well. And of course, trusted adults are also bystanders. I hear from young people that it is really important and impactful when adults step up and say something. It is not neutral to let these situations pass by without intervening. So if a young person's been harmed, there's no one way to do this. It's really important that it's individual, but we recommend listening to the young person. That could be hard. They could be telling you something shocking or hard to hear, but validate their experience as real. That's really important. Support them at a pace that feels right for that young person and connect them to appropriate resources. And also we know, given how many young people are reporting experiencing harm, that a lot of young people are also causing harm. And that can be really challenging for to be an adult in that person's life. We think it's really important to listen empathetically to young people, to humanize them without validating the behavior. So hold the behavior accountable and identify some healthy alternatives, maybe some coping mechanisms, and maybe also some triggers. Where is this happening? And then what are some different things we could do? There are some unique aspects of teen dating violence that relate to the community. And one of those is that young people are not always able to avoid the person causing harm because they're at school. I mentioned this is a small ecosystem, but young people have to go to school. They have to be there. So what does it mean that they might be seeing the person that causes them harm? A lot of young people feel that they're not able to tell someone. Unfortunately, there's been some reports that young people feel, a lot of young people don't feel that they have a trusted adult. Finally, there are a lack of resources and services. Unfortunately, a lot of these resources are not designed for teens and adolescents. There are some real barriers to accessing resources, whether that's, a shared health insurance plan with family members, or whether that is consent forms and having to disclose to a family member in order to get services. And I also just wanted to mention that youth is one of many intersecting identities that a young person might hold. So for example, LGBTQ+ young people might also have a fear of being outed. The CDC recently came out with some research that indicated a third of young people in schools feel that they have been discriminated based off of race and ethnicity. So what does that mean for Black, Brown, and BIPOC students who are seeking services at their school? It's really important that we consider these. And finally, I wanted to highlight some resources. Here locally, we are the Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center. I wanted to provide our hotline. We provide crisis services here, and you're encouraged to share that hotline and use it. I also wanted to highlight some state resources. The Network LaRed, I think one thing that is unique about their hotline is that they highlight emotional counseling. They are happy to talk to people to process things. And a call for change. This is the first and only national hotline started here in the state of Massachusetts for people who have caused harm or people who are concerned about someone who may be causing harm. There are, of course, some national resources as well, so we like to list those. Right. So we believe teens deserve to thrive here. Thank you so much for showing up and being about it. I have to thank my team again, and also to Imogene, who helped peer review this entire presentation. And finally, I wanted to mention, so Imogene is planning on joining us for our MVP Institute that is happening at the beginning of March. Here we go. And we are so excited to be able to share these reflections that we got recorded. We're so grateful to her for doing that for us. So we'll turn it over to Alicia now.
All right, I'll get her video queued up here. Hold on one moment.
I think teen dating violence is important, and I feel like it's not talked about enough, and that a lot of people don't realize that they are either in a violent relationship or an unhealthy relationship, or they don't realize that they're the ones bringing that unhealthiness to the relationship. And I feel like it's really important to talk about so that people can really understand why it's not okay and how they can fix their relationship and make it work, or even just like finding ways to leave that relationship if it's like obviously bad enough. And sorry, I'm like having a brain moment. Realizing that like what's going on isn't okay, and specifically like letting people know that like this isn't normal, this is not okay, like they shouldn't be treating you that way, or you shouldn't be treating them that way, so that they like have it set in their mind that like this isn't okay, I shouldn't be treated this way, or I shouldn't be treating this person this way because the way I'm treating them is unhealthy, or the way that I'm getting treated is unhealthy, and so that they can leave the relationship or express how they're feeling about the topic, and just like bring more light to what is healthy and what isn't. I think what's unique about like teen dating and teen dating violence is that I feel like when it comes to dating in your teen years, I feel like there's a lot of things that are pressured to do, like have sexual intercourse, or like talk about things that you're uncomfortable with, or things like that. So I feel like it needs to be talked about, like the healthy things, and like knowing that you don't need to be doing certain things as a teenager, and like knowing that like even if you are uncomfortable in the situation, it's okay to say no, it's okay to express how you're feeling, and that like no one should make you feel bad for not wanting to do something, even if it's just like going out to dinner, or going out to lunch, or going on a date, or hanging out that day if you don't feel comfortable with it. Just knowing that like you don't have to be with your significant other every day, you don't have to be having sexual intercourse, you don't have to go on that date, you don't have to do what you're uncomfortable with in the moment. So that's important to talk about. And then it's important to talk about the fact that like it's not only men who are doing the unhealthiness, I guess, in the situations or in the relationships, and that like lots of men experience unhealthy relationships where they're put into uncomfortable situations, or they're trigger warning, sexually assaulted or raped and things like that, and that like it's not only women who go through these things, it's men as well, and that there should be an equality between a relationship, and that it should be 50-50. But at the same time, sometimes it's not always 50-50. Sometimes someone's feeling like very sad or depressed that day, and they can only give in so much, they can only give in 30%. So you need to give that extra percentage that one day, and then if you're not feeling that day, then that's your other significant other needs to be putting in that percentage, just because sometimes you can't give 50%, sometimes you can only give so much, but that's the best that you can do, and I feel like that's important. I think it's really important that adults can understand the way that kids are feeling, and like knowing that the way your child is feeling is how they're feeling, and that no matter how much you try to teach them a lesson or punish them or make them feel a certain way because of something they've done in a relationship isn't going to make them want to go to you, or it's just going to make them want to like stay away from you and like not go to you when something serious is happening, like they're getting abused or they're getting sexually assaulted and things like that. Should I put up trigger warnings? And so I feel like when your child comes to you and tells you something that's going on in their relationship, being supportive and being there for them, and not talking about yourself or your own experiences, and just like sitting there and going, okay, glad you came to me with this information, I'm gonna help you through it, instead of being like, oh well, you did this, like you're blah, blah, like you're in trouble, this, that, and the next thing, and like you're punished and stuff like that. And I feel like that's just a way to get your child not to come to you. And then eventually, if it gets bad enough where they're like getting abused and things like that, feeling like they can't go to their parent, which is someone who's always supposed to protect them, who's someone who's always supposed to be there for them. It really sucks, because like knowing that, you know, you have a child, so that like this is your child, this is your baby, this is someone you're supposed to always protect and be there for and support, and feeling like the person who brought you into this world and that you're supposed to trust with everything, you can't trust, really sucks. And like feeling like you can't go to them sucks. So just like having more of an open mind and like understanding that like, okay, I understand that this is happening and I'm not going to punish you for it, and I'm glad you came to me with this information, and not like making their feelings feel like they don't matter and that they're not serious enough, and that it's just a teen relationship, and that like your feelings will pass, and that it's not serious because you're just a teenager, you're just a kid, so your feelings don't matter or are invalid, is not okay. And I feel like it should be more taken seriously by adults.
Okay, thank you again to Imogene for doing that video for us. I think we can move it over to our Q&A portion. So anyone, if you feel like you want to unmute yourself, ask a question to any of our folks here, or you can drop it in the chat as well. I actually do have one that came in to me in the chat, which is, are there any resources available to learn a little bit more about talking to a teen about dating violence? Briar, maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some great resources, and I think the first place I might turn someone is Love is Respect. I think they have a great website, and they have several guides as well. I also I did come across a pretty fantastic parent, like a guardian kind of toolkit for having these conversations. So I might be able to follow up with someone and include that information if someone specifically would like that. I can track it down.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions they wanted to ask?
I have one. I was wondering what do you think a young person needs in order to be able to talk about what's going on in their relationship with an adult? Like what do they need? What does that look like?
I think that it's going to be really individual to the young person. But I think that there are a few places to start, and some feel really obvious, but like environment, having a comfortable environment, space makes all the difference. And sometimes school isn't or a particular place in school, like a public place in school, is not a comfortable place to have that conversation. So even just shifting the environment, I think, can make a big difference. And then the other thing that I have just heard repeatedly from young people, especially this month, as I've been able to tune into lots of youth panels, communication. And I think Imogene says this as well, but if a young person has the sense that the first thing that they're going to hear from an adult is judgment or punishment or some kind of negativity, I think they are a lot less likely to share that information. So I know it can be gut-wrenching, or it could be frustrating, or, you know, if maybe a young person is disclosing that they're causing harm, that could feel like a really hard thing to carry. But I think being a human and being open, and Imogene said it so beautifully, like it's not about us in that moment, but just really making it about that young person. What do you need? Asking, you know, turning it back on them. What would make this, I know this is not comfortable, what would make it a little bit more possible or safe?
Jazz, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Briar, in working with teens, as a mom of a teen, I have 3 daughters and each one's personality is very different. So where my 23-year-old was very forthcoming, open, it wasn't tough to pull conversations out of her. But my current 13-year-old, it's the typical, fine, it was good. Some days she's more talkative than others, but then there are days where I feel like there might be something going on and she's just like, I'm fine. And it could be something between friends. It could be stress at school. I don't know what it is. So I wanted to ask, like, what are some ways to open up your teen to get them to talk? And I know sometimes you can't like force conversation out of them or pressure them to talk. So it's like being consistent and like just checking in. But I'm just wondering if there are some tools that would be helpful for me as a teen mom to help open her up to feel comfortable to talk about anything.
Yeah, Jazz, thank you so much. Also, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Good to see you. You know, 2 things come to mind, and there are things that I know you know. You know, the first is just what we know about how many, in this field, what we know about how many times, you know, it takes someone to really leave a relationship. I'm thinking, for example, like 7 or 8, I think is the statistic that we have. And the reason why I'm coming to that is in our bystander education, we talk about what it means to support that person, you know, and what it means to be there on the 8th time that they need someone, right? And so I think my first thought is exactly what you said, right? That consistency and the lines of communication that are already open have been tended to. The seed is planted, and when it's needed, they'll be there. You know, when you know, young people are ready to talk, they do. The other thing that I would mention that is going to seem so kind of outrageous and ridiculous that I'm even saying this, and again, I know you know, activities. So I find that kind of framing an important conversation around, we're drawing, or we're doing a vision board, or we're doing this other thing, it just creates, again, that container or the space where it's like, we're doing this together, we're in it. And there's no agenda. There isn't an agenda here, but I've carved out the time for us to like have some conversation, and it's not so much pressure or burden of like, I think people also use car rides this way a little bit, like you're stuck here. But making it fun, you know, something that you know, the quality time that I'm sure you already spend together. So everything you're already doing, Jazz. I'm sorry if that wasn't helpful, but yeah.
No, that was great. It's a good reminder to creating the space and setting aside a time to do something fun and just, yeah, you know, just making it a natural environment to talk versus a direct environment to talk. So yeah, I like that reminder. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Thanks for the question.
So we did have another just mention here that if we do have some resources on how to communicate with teens about dating violence, so we will send that out in our follow-up email. We'll include some links for you all. And then Tara had a question. Do you have suggestions for trusted adults to navigate conversations with caretakers following a disclosure when a young person is concerned about judgment or punishment from their adult at home?
I think that's a great question and very reflective. I think it depends a lot on the relationships that already exist and whether, you know, whether there's already some channels of communication between trusted adult and caretaker. I guess I say that because I'm always sensitive to taking conversations about the lives of teens offline and outside of that teen's life. But at the same time, I can understand the need for having some, like getting some caregivers maybe on the same page. So if there is some opportunity to have that conversation, I think it's probably a similar, in some ways a similar process that we might do with young people who are disclosing. I think that something that's easy to forget is that caregivers who have a young person that are experiencing teen dating violence, they're experiencing something themselves, right? I think it's really hard to have a young person in your life that's experiencing this. So being able to just like listen and hear what are their concerns, what are they thinking about, why does punishment and judgment, what's underneath that maybe. And again, maybe without an agenda, just trying to get a sense of that, and connect with who they are as humans, like humanize them as well. And then maybe there's some opportunity for conversation and a little bit more exchange of information, perhaps, if that feels appropriate or helpful. But yeah, I mean, that's a really tricky situation. And the other thing I'll say on the other end of that is the young person. If this is a young person that we're working with who has this concern about their caregiver, that's valid. That's valid. And so making sure that they have the information to know, well, here are the resources that you can use without the health insurance that you have shared with your guardians. Or here is, I made this call and you don't need to fill out a consent form if you're 17 here. So maybe you could seek this resource. So just letting them know that if caregivers aren't a comfortable avenue or a safe avenue of disclosure right now, then there are still ways to get support, and to thank them for coming to you, because that also means that you have really made that channel of communication open for that young person. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you all for these awesome questions and also for being here. This is being about it, and I just really appreciate it.
Right. Looks like I don't think we have any other questions coming in at the moment. We still have 10 minutes though, so we'll hang out for a bit if you do. But I know Kelly had a couple just closing things that she wanted to share too.
Sure. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending once again. And Briar, thank you so much for this presentation. I personally learned a lot. I'm going to be reaching out in the next week with follow-up emails as well too, with the information that folks had asked for. So stay tuned for that. And I just wanted to, let folks know, if you're interested in getting involved with the center, you can contact me. My information, my cell phone and email is being put into the chat. You can also visit our website to volunteer, donate, or to help spread the word about our services. Also, I just wanted to share with you that we're really excited to let folks know that we're going to be having our 11th annual White Ribbon event, which is a Pledge for Change this year. This is the first time in 4 years that we have been in person. We're shaking up the event a little bit this year. It's been a breakfast in the past. It is going to be a dinner in Andover, and that is on Thursday, March 30th from 6 to 10 p.m. We're going to have live and silent auctions. We're going to be talking about the youth empowerment services that you've learned about today, and you can hear from students like Imogene as well, just about the benefits of these programs. So Lily is going to drop the registration in the chat. And I just want to thank everybody once again. And if you have any questions and you want to hang out for a bit, we'll be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
I guess you're
Thank
going to
you.
Agape?